Jack, we might as well jump right into this, and we should apologize to all of the Notre Dame fans who are watching, which thank you for watching this show this week and every week. We got it wrong, man. We got week one wrong. I know we didn't make official picks on this Hey Horka YouTube video, and if you're watching back on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, thank you. But yeah, like I said, Jack, we didn't make picks here, but we made picks at blueandgold.com. We made picks in our Blue and Gold Illustrated magazine. We both picked Texas A&M to win. And to our credit, for about 58 minutes, it was a possibility. But I wouldn't even say 58, Jack, because let's just talk about that game for a minute before we get into the questions that we're doing for today's Hey Horka show. As soon as Notre Dame got the ball with about, 6 or 7 minutes left, you could kind of tell that they were going on a march. They were going on one of those game-winning types of drives, and they got the passing play to Jaden Greathouse on 3rd and 5, and then the Bo Collins one signaled to me as soon as he didn't get penalized for the old shove. Yeah, they're probably going to go win this game, and that's exactly what they did. Is that the kind of way that you felt when you were sitting there?
Yeah, I feel like once they kind of, maybe not at the start of that drive, I think once they kind of got the ball in the red zone, the clock was ticking out the 2-minute warning. You're like, all right, Notre Dame's probably got this. And at that point, we were just trying to sprint down from the press box to the field so we could see the rest of the game. I don't know if I want to apologize for A&M. I'll admit I was wrong, or for picking A&M. I'll admit I was wrong, but I'm not apologizing for picking who I thought was going to win the game. I did say in my prediction that it was a toss-up and it was going to be a low-scoring rock fight, and I think we both agreed. I also think that we laid out a clear formula for how Notre Dame could win this game, which was recognize the kind of game flow is going to be, don't turn the ball over, win the turnover battle, win the field position battle, hang around, make a big play or two in the second half. And I mean, that's what they did. So I think it's a terrific win for Notre Dame. We picked 11-1 on the season, and people were generally okay with that. But then when all of a sudden you pick Notre Dame to lose a game and people lose their minds, like where do you? Yeah. I'm not sure where y'all think losses come from, but it's not like out of thin air. So but I mean now it's looking at like 12-0 is a legitimate possibility.
Yeah, I was about to say losses look harder to come by now than they did even at this time last week when we were doing this show, because Florida State is now 0-2. Georgia Tech didn't look overly convincing. I think they played Georgia State. I think they won like 35-12 or 13 or something like that. So, I mean, a 23, 22-point win is good, but I would say what Notre Dame did at Texas A&M is better, and what Notre Dame has done. Exactly like you said, Jack, this could be a 12-0 season. I had bookending losses for this year. I picked 10-2, and guys, kind of to Jack's point, that's a step up from the last year, and then obviously 8-4 a couple seasons ago. So I was just kind of going with the incremental progression. And look, 10-2 is still a possibility too, even though like I don't see 2 losses in the next 11 games, but you didn't see Notre Dame losing to Louisville and Clemson last year either. So this year could be different, and we're going to talk a lot about that, because what Notre Dame did at Texas A&M, Jack, I think that was different than anything that we saw last year and really in the Marcus Freeman era. I mean, would you agree with me? Not just his best road win, but the best win of his tenure. Would you put that over Clemson 2022, USC 2023?
Yeah, I think pending how the rest of the season works out, both for Notre Dame and A&M, I think we all look at that Clemson USC win worse in hindsight, because those teams turned out to be not as good as we thought they were. But right now, certainly it looks like the best win of his tenure so far. It really shows the progress that's being made, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, because last year when the offense struggled, A, they would turn the ball over, and B, they would go through long stretches where like they can't do anything. I want to point out that like even though the offense didn't score 30 points, like they scored points in every quarter, and I think that matters, because they didn't have long stretches where they were doing nothing. They just knew what the game flow was going to be and played accordingly. They didn't turn it over. They did, like against Louisville and Clemson, that was the killers, is they turned it over. And I just saw a lot of progress with the way they handled playing against a really good defense, which was they didn't get carried away. They didn't take chances that they shouldn't have. They didn't make silly decisions with the exception of one Riley Leonard throw that easily could have been a pick six. But it's not a pick six if he doesn't catch it. But no, I mean, particularly from an offensive standpoint, just the resilience that they showed, I think does make it Freeman's best win.
What I keep saying over and over and over again last week, Jack, it was just find a way to answer. And the answering in this game ended up only being field goals. I mean, 6-6 at halftime felt ugly, felt kind of meh, but I think it was a win based on game flow. Like you were saying, that was a game flow win because it looked like Texas A&M was going to drive right down and score a touchdown. 7-0 is a lot different than 3-0. Yep. All of a sudden, you only have to match a field goal, and you only had to match another field goal. And honestly, Notre Dame probably should have been winning at half if you take into account Don Schuler's interception. Was that in the first half, Jack?
Yeah, two interceptions and 3
and the
points.
Watts pick. Yeah, 3 points off of 2 interceptions in the first half. The better team ended up asserting itself in the second half by scoring 17 points and winning the game. So, yeah, I mean, it has set up a pretty fun stretch, Jack. I was just doing our newsstand for Thursday morning, and I think people have seen this all over social media already. Notre Dame has the best chance of winning out per ESPN's FPI, and it's not close.
Was that the case? I believe that was the case before the season started.
Yeah, but now it's not close.
Okay,
now it's Notre Dame.
Now it's, yeah.
Over 20%, and the next closest team is Penn State at 11. Like
it's
it is
very interesting to me that Penn State is the next closest team.
Yeah, it must be a schedule thing because then it's
all
the usual
stuff. It's a schedule thing for Notre Dame, certainly.
That is very true as well. Yeah. So we are going to dive into the questions. Obviously, you guys see the headline. We're going to talk about Riley Leonard, Northern Illinois. But first, we need to talk about our sponsor, which is Augie's Locker Room. And it's a home game weekend, Jack. And so is Miami, Ohio, and Louisville. So 2 of the next 3 weekends, you guys will be in South Bend. And if you're in South Bend, you definitely need to swing by Augie's Locker Room. We know you love Notre Dame memorabilia and unique one-of-a-kind Notre Dame items that you can only find at one place, and that is Augie's Locker Room. Augie's Locker Room has moved to a brand new location. Come see the brand new store located at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend. Really convenient location. Jack can attest to that. It's like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes off of campus if you don't hit any lights on what is that street right there?
South Bend Ave.
Is that South Bend Ave? Yeah. South Bend Ave in Ironwood. So it's right there. And when you do come for a game, go check out Augie's Locker Room for sure. They have a wide selection of Notre Dame Stadium pieces, jerseys, helmets, autographs, and one-of-a-kind Rockney items. You can find exclusive Joe Montana signed items and famous sculptor Jerry McKenna's replicas of the bronze statues around the stadium. Augie gets new items all the time. If he doesn't have it in his store, he'll find it for you. So visit Augie at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend and see the vintage helmet display dating back to 1890. He's got some amazing items. You want to see them, visit augieslockerroom.com or call him at 574-277-6363. All right, like I said, we're going to jump into some talk kind of about the A&M game, obviously, because that's the only frame of reference that we have to go off of right now with this football team. But we're going to talk Northern Illinois and kind of big picture stuff as well. So this kind of encapsulates all of those things, Jack, because we saw some inaccuracy from Riley Leonard's passing ability against Texas A&M. We have definitely seen that dating back to his Duke days when we watched all 21 of his starts there. So this is the question from Z Thundy1, which is someone that I don't think we've had on this show. So always love to see a new contributor from the loose emoji message board. Has your concern level in Riley Leonard's passing ability changed from fall camp to now? I'm just going to go ahead and quickly say no. I'll elaborate later, but I'm going to give you the floor first, Jack. Go ahead.
I will also say no. I do want to make a point that, like, we got a question either last week or a couple weeks ago. I mean, we've been talking about this A&M game for so long, but it was basically like, what do Riley's stats need to be for Notre Dame to win this game? And my response would basically be like, I could give less. Can I cuss on the show?
Depends on what you're saying, but we're about to find out.
All right, I could give less of a hoot what Riley Leonard's stats are, and now that it's over, I can give less of a hoot what Riley stats are right now. Like I truly do not care. Like all that matters is he engineered the final drive, didn't turn the ball over, won the game. Like that is it. That is all he needed to do against A&M. Regarding the accuracy and the passing ability, he looked pretty much like he did at Duke, and that's how he looked in fall camp. In that, was he completely accurate? No. Did he have a few throws that he liked to have back? Sure. Did he put the ball in harm's way very much? No. He did a good job of that. Again, with one exception. Did he run well? Yes. Did he play well at the end? Make a couple really big time throws. Not enough people are talking about that 3rd and 5 to Jaden Greathouse. I know it was a bit of a layup, but like that was a big time throw in a big time situation. So no, it hasn't changed. Do I think he is the kind of passer who can win a shootout? That's still to be determined. But luckily with this defense, he won't need to.
Yeah, it's a good point about the defense. And it's a really good point about him being who he was at Duke and that being who he still is now at Notre Dame.
And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that's why Notre Dame went out and got him. They liked who he was at Duke. A lot of people liked who he was at Duke. And now he's surrounded by an offensive line that played a lot better than anyone thought going in and is only going to get better. The wide receivers, I think, are still going to get better. Bo Collins impressed me. Got to give a shout out to Mike Singer for being on that one because I wasn't seeing that coming from him. Jaden Greathouse makes big catches when he needs to. We've seen that before. I think you're still going to see some more out of some of the other guys in that unit. We'll get to some of that later in the show. But when you're talking about Riley Leonard himself, 60%, I will take that from him every single time. He was 18 of 30 in this game. Some people probably look at the 158 yards, and Jack, you just denounced that. It doesn't matter, man. I think the throw to Bo Collins was the longest. Have you looked at air yards or anything? I think Sports Info Solutions does that.
PFF has that as well. I have not, but I mean, we do know that like Freeman and Denbrock, or Freeman in particular said like, yeah, we knew we couldn't take downfield shots in this game just because of the game plan, what A&M could do to us, what A&M like would do defensively. The translation is there. They knew they couldn't block long enough to take deep shots. And I think the side effect to that is like A&M. Mike Elko is a really smart coach, and when A&M knows that Notre Dame isn't going to want to take deep shots because of the offensive line, they're going to have their defensive backs really key in on the quick game. So when you saw it, not a lot of receivers open underneath. I don't think that's a reflection on the receivers at all. I think that's a reflection of the domino effect that the disadvantage of front had, and the game plan that you had to put in if you're Notre Dame to make up for that. So the point is like air yards per attempt. Like I don't care about that right now.
Yeah, and it's going to get better because not every game plan is going to be as, I don't want to say dumbed down, but I used dialed back earlier in the week because that's what it was. It was dialed back. It was, hey, we think we can win this game by just doing this. And Riley Leonard did this, what the game plan was, exceptionally well. Like I said, 60%, you'll take that from him every single time. I think in 2022 is a 64% passer. So you would like to see some games where he's in that 65 to 70 range. But if he's above, or if he's not in the 50 range, I think you're living with that. And he got better. I wrote this at blueandgold.com today. There was a stretch in the game where he missed 4 of 5 of his throws, incomplete passes. And then I think he completed 2 or 3 in a row. And then he missed 3 of 4. So it was a bad 10 to 12 throw stretch for Riley Leonard. Second half.
Second, third quarter.
Yeah, it was pretty much all of the second quarter, maybe even late first into the second. And then in the second half, he goes 7 of 11 for 80-something yards. So that there's more than half of his yards. He's well over 50% there. He's 75, 80% there, 7 of 11. So got better. And then his last 2 throws of the game. You mentioned the one to Greathouse. I talked about the one to Bo Collins. Those are his 2 biggest throws of the game, probably. And they're his last 2 throws of the game. Dude's a winner. Is he going to miss some simple throws that you're like, dang it? Yes. He's not Patrick Mahomes. His accuracy isn't his calling card. He's a gamer, though. And I say this, if you can get away, and I wouldn't even call it getting away with Riley Leonard being your number 2 back. He basically was your number 2 back in this game. And that's ahead of Jadarian Price, who broke an electrifying 47-yard touchdown. Notre Dame doesn't win without that run. And Riley Leonard was still your number 2 back essentially with 12 carries for 63 yards or whatever it was. So when you add everything in, my concern level with Riley Leonard's accuracy or passing ability, whatever you call it, is so low considering everything else he does. And I do think he's going to have some better games where he does throw for 250 yards. And maybe if you do hit a couple big ones against some of these opponents, Jack, that we mentioned why Notre Dame has a 20% chance to go undefeated the rest of the season, Riley Leonard might end up with a 300-yard passing game or two. Like it's not like he's a bad thrower of the football. He just does so many other things so well. And when you add it all together, he's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, and again, like he's going to get better as the season moves along. We said
because the offense is going to get better as the season moves along, right?
Well, the offense as a whole is going to get better. A big part of that is Riley's going to get better. In that, like we remember the story that Mike Denbrock told about Jaden Daniels, and he didn't completely trust his receivers, defaulted to his legs a little more than he should have. Like that's Riley right now. Riley in November, he's going to be a better passer, and he's going to be more able to beat you through the air. And you feel so much more comfortable about that fact now because you escaped College Station with the win. And that's the biggest thing with Riley finding a way to win, doing a terrific job on that touchdown drive with the 2 big throws, the 2 big runs. And he's gonna be better as a passer. He certainly wasn't perfect, but he's going to be better.
All right, we'll end this conversation with a couple comments from the chat here. Greg Wasserman, definitely not a Heisman guy. I never saw that for Riley Leonard anyway. I think he was just in the top 10 to 15 of the betting odds over the offseason because he's Notre Dame's quarterback. And Notre Dame has a real good shot to be the number 5 team in the country come CFP seeding time. So, Jack, I think you would agree with that. You never saw him as a Heisman guy, did you?
No, I never did. He appeared on some of the odds lists, but I didn't think he was going to be a guy who's going to be up there. I go back to something Marcus Freeman said in May. It's like, I don't know what the NFL draft projections say, but when the game is on the line, I want the ball in Riley Leonard's hands. And that I think that is who Riley was for Notre Dame. I mean, that's why like Notre Dame gave him the Offensive Player of the Week award. It's internal team awards. Like he had the ball at the game on the line. He delivered. That was everything you wanted him to do in week 1. The stats and accolades, they can come as they may. The kid won the football game.
Yeah, and Mike Elko's quarterback did not, and that's the last comment that I'll bring up. Elko would like to have Leonard. Of course he would, but he did not, and he had Connor Wigman, and that was a pretty big determining factor in this football game. Riley Leonard was better than Connor Wigman. So,
for sure.
Kind of keeping with the theme of the passing attack, Jack, and now we're going to work in NIU. This is from Aerofan624. Can Notre Dame blow out NIU? It's a 4 touchdown spread right now, Jack, isn't it? 28 points.
I haven't looked, to be honest, and I probably should, but I probably.
So can it blow out NIU? I would say a blowout is anything more than that. We're talking 30 points. And work on its deep passing attack at the same time. I'll take this one first, and it's a pretty short answer from me. Yeah, I think that's what you're trying to do because I will give one caveat, though. Northern Illinois, you wrote about this, Jack, and I have written about this as well. Number 6 total passing defense in the country last year in terms of yards allowed per game. I think you said it was number 11 or 12, somewhere around there in yards per pass attempt last season. So
something like that.
You're talking about a top 10 when you average those two things out. Passing defense, most of those guys are back. They have really good cornerbacks. A really good starter on one side, and then 2 guys they kind of rotate in on the other. Sound familiar? Notre Dame kind of has that itself. Rasheem Thomas, I think, is a guy that really gets after the passer, and it sounds like he's not going to play in this game, Jack. So I think if that's the case, you don't have Thomas, who led all FBS defensive linemen in total tackles last season.
Led all FBS defensive linemen, was the only FBS defensive lineman to lead his team. Which is very impressive. And I think like most tackles by a D lineman in NIU history, he set a lot of tackles records for defensive linemen. He's a huge player for them, figuratively and literally.
Probably their best player on defense, and he's not playing, and that's huge up front for Notre Dame. I feel so much better about this offensive line now, Jack, which is why I can confidently answer this question with the resounding yes. I think Notre Dame's going to kind of open it up in this one. You're at home. You know that your defense is elite again. You know that your offensive line is playing with a lot more confidence than it would have if things had gone awry at Texas A&M. And the line wasn't perfect, but they didn't give up a sack, and they did enough for Notre Dame to do what it did in winning that game. So I like the confidence of the line. I like knowing that you have a good defense on the other side. Riley Leonard, Marcus Freeman said in his press conference on Monday, just to get back to him with the passing thing for a second, he has all the confidence in the world, Marcus Freeman does, in letting Riley Leonard take those shots. Jack, when we watched those Duke games in the offseason, we saw enough deep balls to know that he can throw it. And I don't know if it's the heave it as far as you can, 50-yarder, that's Riley's strength. But if you get into an area where I don't know, maybe you're at the 30 and you're saying, okay, this is an end zone shot. He only needs to throw it 30 to 40 yards in the air. I saw him be very accurate with that throw. And you can do that from your own 30 as well and get it to, the other 20 and set yourself up in the red zone. It doesn't have to be the 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown shot that we're talking about when we talk about the deep passing game. So I do think you see Riley Leonard attempt some passes well beyond 20 yards downfield, which is nothing like what he did against Texas A&M. And look, Jeremiah Love and Jardine Price and Riley Leonard himself are going to run the football well enough to allow you to take some of those shots. So all things considered, yeah, I think this sets up for Notre Dame to do some things with its offense and kind of figure out a little bit more about itself.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I wanted to add a couple things. One, this is a very pushes glasses against forehead correction, but they did change a Nick Scorton tackle for loss on Riley Leonard to a sack. That was the spin move that he hit on Knapp in the second quarter.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Knapp actually talked about this yesterday. He was like, so the moment I was overthinking it was like when he knew Scorton loved the spin move, so he's like, keep the shoulder down. Then he started to get confident, and so he tried to be an athlete, kept the shoulder up, and then Scorton just hit him with a vicious spin move. So they changed that to a sack. But again, very much a technicality. The other thing I'll add, and again, I agree with all that, is that I still think Riley is the kind of quarterback who needs to get into a rhythm before he can really hit some of those deep balls. So I wouldn't necessarily come out firing the first play of the game. I would try to hit a quick screen or a quick slant, get to second and 2, then really take the deep shot is the plan. Is the plan I would have there. I was kind of thinking about this and kind of thinking about Freeman's comment about not taking deep shots. Is was that part of why we saw a lot more Jordan Faison than Chris Mitchell when Faison was healthy? I mean, we obviously, there's no way to know next week because Faison's not going to play, but would we have seen maybe Faison still would have started, but would we have seen more of an even mix between the two in the first quarter? It's something I was thinking about, and there's going to be a question later about an offensive guy who we think is going to play well this week that we don't think that didn't really do much last week. And I mean, Chris is a good candidate for that.
Yeah, way to give away. Never mind.
We'll sorry about that.
I'm kidding. It's a good teaser. No, when you said his name, in that context, that's the first thing that I thought of was that's probably a big reason why we did see more Jordan Faison last week than Chris Mitchell. I also just think Jordan Faison's a really good football player. And,
for sure. Yeah, don't want.
It's a shame that he's out for a week or two, but if you're gonna miss him, these are probably not. This is the time to do it. Before you get into October and November, and with this team, it's looking like December for sure. So, I mean, and you mentioned the quick passes. If I remember correctly, the first pass of the game for Riley Leonard against Texas A&M was a quick screen to Jeremiah Love. I don't think it went anywhere, but that's what it was.
I want to say it gained 2 or 3.
And then he gained 5 or 6 to Cooper Flanagan on his first pass coming out in the second half. So that is a thing with Riley Leonard, and we saw that at Duke as well. Let him see one. It's like a basketball player seeing a free throw go through or that first shot go through. Let him get one out there, complete the pass, and that's kind of with any quarterback. But when you're talking about Riley Leonard, who has all of these things going on, and he's not the most accurate guy to begin with, like we said, that is a perfect thing to do. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of run to set up the pass, the deep ball, and it's going to be a lot of short pass to set up the deep ball as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the same page with all of that.
I do want to, before we move on real quick, pull up TD4ND's comment from a minute
Mhm.
ago. The Denbrock's play calling multidimensional. Completely agreed. Like the slant is just the example I was using. Like a nice thing about Denbrock is that he really found multiple ways to do this. Like it wasn't just power with Jadarian Price under center. I don't think they went under center once in this game, which is a welcome change for Notre Dame.
I was a little scared on the fourth and the one that Notre Dame converted. Were they both 4th and 1? Maybe this one was 4th and 2.
Yeah, they're both 4th. They were 4th and 1, 4th and 2. I mean, so QB power is the new QB sneak.
That's true.
But yeah,
we did see a couple snaps on the ground though. There was just something
correct.
internally in my brain that said this could go awry, but it didn't. If you pull it off, yeah, Riley Leonard is going to plow forward for 5 yards. Yeah. Like he's tough to tackle, man.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to question number 3. This is kind of subjective, big picture. Definitely has to do with this week, considering something that happened a couple of years ago. You led off your NIU preview with that anecdote, Jack, which is a really good story. Go to blueandgold.com to read Jack's preview of this game. Does the emotion of the Texas A&M game help or hurt Notre Dame moving forward? This is from DCWFLYCA, a common poster on our message board. Appreciate you. I'll give a little short answer, Jack, then let you go again, and then we'll circle back to me. I think this year it helps, unlike 2022 when Notre Dame came back from Ohio State and lost to Marshall. And then I also go to 2023 because I know people are sick of us bringing up Marshall, even though, like I said, it was a great anecdote, and it's probably the most recent, pertinent, relevant example that we have to Notre Dame returning to Notre Dame Stadium and having to play a game like this. But I go back to last year. And how quickly people forget Notre Dame had perhaps an even more remarkable drive to beat Duke in that game in Durham last year. And the emotions were high. I mean, remember talking to Howard Cross with his sinus infection after the game, Jack, and he was on cloud 9, just like he was on cloud 9 in College Station. You mentioned that he looked like one of the happiest human beings that you had ever seen, and I would concur with that in College Station. But it feels different to me, Jack, because that felt a little more like a prayer being answered, an exhale, a sigh of relief, like, oh, I can't believe we got this done. We're a 1-loss football team still instead of a 2-loss football team. This is great. Our season is still alive. Happy-go-lucky. This year it feels more like, okay, yeah, let's set a tone. Let's ride this wave of momentum into not just NIU, but every game thereafter. This is who we are. We're an unbeaten football team. We can go beat the number 20 team in the country in their house, or, maybe USC, what are they ranked right now? Like top 15?
13,
That's a hard schedule. That's a tough schedule. I don't know if they're going to be there at the end of the season, but they're not thinking about USC yet. But I'm just thinking hypothetically, you can go beat the number 13 team in the country in their own building, or, fill in the blank with a number in a team type of situation. That's what it feels like Notre Dame is at right now. And not just, we can't believe Sam Hartman ran for 18 yards on 4th and 16 and Audric Estime scored on a play that it sounded like Notre Dame was just trying to set up for a long field goal. Like,
yeah, they were.
It's none of that, Jack. This year it's, holy cow, we took it to Texas A&M in the winning moments. We won by 10. We were the better football team. We showed it in front of 107,000. I think this is different, and I think the emotion helps.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that while that win was a game that was up for grabs for a long time, and was they easily could have lost it if the last 7 minutes went differently, but it was not a fluke. I think there's a difference between a close game and a fluke. Notre Dame won that game convincingly at the end. They were the better team. They were the better conditioned team. I think that, I mean, that's Lauren Lando's. We get questions on the board all the time. Like, he deserves a lot of credit. The nutrition staff, Alexa Appleman, the training staff, Rob Hunt, the sports science, John Waggle, all of that deserves a lot of credit for that win. Regarding the emotion, I think it helps if you harness it correctly. I think that you should, if you're Notre Dame, approach this NIU game with the same enthusiasm and energy. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing another one of those like hype up spiels from Marcus Freeman at the start of the game. Like, you're playing in front of your own fans, it's your home opener. This is a home Notre Dame crowd that, like, when's the last time a Notre Dame crowd has gone into a home opener this happy? I mean, last year was they were pretty happy. That was Navy. Like, I can't remember the last time. Like, use that energy, like, play with that energy. I think that NIU is the type of team that can make this a closer game than most think if Notre Dame underestimates them. And I think Notre Dame knows better. Like, Freeman was on record on the Pivot podcast that summer of 23 saying, like, my mindset after the Ohio State game, Freeman said, was like, all right, we were better than a lot of people thought. We're going to beat Marshall. We know we're going to beat Marshall. It's going to be my first win. And he said that, and, like, obviously they could have said whatever they wanted that week. Like, they obviously underestimate Marshall, and they look past him. They know better this time than to do that. And I think this is an NIU team that, like, could keep this close to the second half if Notre Dame comes out sleeping. Because, like, we should clarify that this is a pretty good MAC team. This is a pretty good Group of 5 team. Team that could contend for its conference championship this year, 100%. But if Notre Dame takes this game seriously and approaches it with the same energy and enthusiasm, like using that emotion, harnessing it for good, I think Notre Dame's going to win this game pretty handily.
Fans have, like, as much as we talk about the 107,000 at Texas A&M, a fan is still a fan, and there's only so much they can do to impact the game. But I do like this from TD4ND. Show that clip of Marcus Freeman going crazy on the Jumbotron. And, Jack, we might hear Notre Dame Stadium get as loud as it ever has while we've been on the beat. This is my 4th season, your 2nd season. Combine all of those games, I think that would be the loudest that we've ever heard that Jumbotron. And you make a good point. Why not just do it again? Marcus Freeman himself is the one who says time and again, you only get 12 guaranteed opportunities. I guarantee you 38-year-old Marcus Freeman, who's got more energy to do this than a lot of head coaches, he can do that 12 times a year, can't he, Jack? Like, maybe that's his new thing. I'm not sure if it would be overkill, but dude, people love it. Do they not love it? They love it.
No, they love it. It clearly had the intended effect. And I don't know, like, I mean, why I'm not a head college football coach. Like, I don't know if that's the right approach to take every week. But I think for at least one more, like, I think it might be the move just to make sure that these guys are like, all right, we're not going to be any less fired up for this one than we were against A&M, and that to send that clear message, like, in these kinds of games, even if it's a good Group of 5 team, like, if you're Notre Dame and you're the home favorite, you start fast, you go to a 14-0 lead, the game is over. You obviously can't treat it like that, but that's the case. A fast start is the way you erase any doubt early in this game, and I think that should be the goal.
All right, so you talked about a good NIU team. You talked about erasing doubt. There's that word. I think every common Notre Dame fan has at least a little bit of it because of the program that they root for and love and have been immersed in all of their lives. Mm-hmm. They've seen some wacky stuff happen, and we mentioned an example 2 years ago. So, Jack, let's end this part of the show with the upset odds. I have them very low.
Very low.
I don't think it's happening, even with as good NIU is. I mean, would you say that Marshall actually had a good year in 2022? So maybe they're
another good. Like, Marshall was 7-6 coming off the 21 season. NIU 7-6 coming off the 23 season.
Yeah, and NIU has all of these starters back. I think it's 18. Is it 9 on both sides of the ball? I mean, it
sounds right. I know that, like, the teams calculate returning starters differently. Like, we at the magazine had a higher standard for a returning starter. Like, right. I think we had 14. The teams have 18. It's
a lot.
Yeah. No,
no matter what the
regardless,
number is. The quarterback had a really good week in week 1, so he's playing with confidence. I think his name is Ethan Hampton. 2 incompletions, 5 touchdown passes, some receivers who are good-looking targets. So, like, kind of the Marshall formula is there for NIU, but I think this is a totally different Notre Dame team from Marcus Freeman being in year 3, Al Golden being in year 3, Mike Denbrock being in here now. Guys, it's also Riley Leonard in his 23rd start of his career versus Tyler Buckner back against Marshall in the second start of his career. And we were all so optimistic and high on Buckner, thought he could be, a multi-year starter at Notre Dame. Ended up not happening. Hindsight's 2020, but Riley Leonard is a multi-year starter. This is his 3rd year starting in college football. And I know last year was injury-ridden, but it riddled. He's a 3-year starter at this level. I forget who was starting over him at Duke. Was it that wide receiver, Jack, in his freshman year who was starting over him?
No, he wasn't starting. They were in a competition together the sophomore year. I couldn't tell you who was a starter in 21.
Leonard probably could have started that year as a freshman. He's that kind of talent. He's a college starting quarterback. Tyler Buckner was not. That's why Notre Dame lost to Marshall. That pick 6 was brutal and crucial. Not happening with Riley Leonard. I don't even think Notre Dame's going to be in that position in the 4th quarter for it to happen. I know somebody earlier in the chat said, can't wait to see the backup quarterbacks. This is TD4ND. You're having quite a night. Appreciate you. Jack, I just don't think, as good as NIU is, and they believe it, I transcribed Thomas Hammock, the head coach. Go to blueandgold.com. You can read every word that he said about Notre Dame, about this game. He's confident, bordering cocky with some of his quotes, but I would say more so confident in his team and in himself as a coach. But it's just not happening this week. I think Notre Dame wins pretty big, and there's nothing to worry about. I don't think you have too much to add to that, but you agree.
Yeah, I agree. The game flow, I think this game could follow more than Marshall. I actually look back to Central Michigan from last year.
That's a good comp. That's a good comp.
Because so NIU's strength on offense is the run game. They have a few returning starters, I think, who made like 3rd team All-MAC preseason, something like that. They're good players. They got a running back named Antario Brown, who I honestly considered for the all-opponent team as the running back. I went with Jamal Haynes, which looks like a good pick so far for Georgia Tech. But Brown is like, his size is like Estime, but a little bit smaller, like a little bit shorter. He's got like those Saquon Barkley quads that'll run through you if you're not careful. He's an explosive dude, really good player. And like if Notre Dame kind of sleepwalks on defense, like they're going to get punched in the mouth with the run game. Yeah. And I see this game going like maybe it's 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. Maybe it's like I think Central Michigan was 21-14 Notre Dame at halftime, and then Notre Dame won like 41. I think I have 41-14 in this game. I think that's pretty realistic.
That was almost the exact same score as the Central Michigan game. Was that 41-17?
41-17. So I mean that was the model. Like I see this game as pretty similar to Central Michigan in a lot of ways, and I think it'll turn out about the same.
As long as the model, and sticking with the theme of MAC and MACtion, as long as the model isn't 2021 Toledo, Jack, I think Notre Dame fans will be just fine with that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, moving on to question number 4. This one probably shouldn't take too long, but I think it definitely kind of brings out some interesting answers. You alluded to it earlier, Jack, so I will start with that part myself. And name a player on offense and defense who did not significantly impact the A&M game, but will have a good week in week 2, kind of putting a call out there, if you will, on both sides of the ball. That's from CMCK406. Appreciate you. Jack, I'm going to go with Chris Mitchell on offense, and you alluded to that earlier, and I think I put it on the in the thread, the Hey Horka thread earlier. No Jordan Faison this week, and this is the type of team that Chris Mitchell just kind of feasted on at Florida International. I mean, he had 1,100 yards last season, and that's because he played this tier, this level of opponent over and over and over again, and he's probably going to be able to, as much as I talked up those corners earlier in this conversation, he's probably going to be able to run by one or two of them at least 1 or 2 times in this game. So I think that he catches at least one long ball. Is he going to score a touchdown? I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets somebody on like a double move that he had in the blue gold game, for instance. He can do that in this game, score a touchdown. All of a sudden he's at 2 catches, 80 yards and a score. And you're saying, okay, there's the Chris Mitchell that we wanted to see. We didn't see at Texas A&M. So that's my pick for the offense. Do you want to do your offense and then we'll go defense?
Yeah, I'll go my offense as well. I'm going to say Jaden Harrison. We didn't see too much from him, particularly as like a receiver. We saw him use on like a jet sweep maybe once. Maybe he got the ball a second time. I don't remember. But I want to see him kind of work over the middle a little bit more. I liked what he was doing in fall camp and back in the spring out of the slot, like catching some of those quick slants, those in routes over the middle. Maybe a tunnel screen with him could be ideal. So I like him to do a good amount. One more quick shout out. We did not see any Aeneas Williams against Texas A&M. I think we see a good amount of Aeneas Williams against Northern Illinois.
Is that because it's going to be a blowout, or do you think he's worked in even in the first half?
Not necessarily, no. I think so. Dylan McCullough had a striking quote. I think we made it I made it into a graphic in camp. It was like, we like the way Aeneas can pass protect, but he said like the trusting a freshman against A&M and pass pro would be malpractice, which is why we saw exclusively Devin Ford on third downs. I think given that's not A&M anymore, I think we see a little bit of Aeneas Williams in that first half because he's listed on the depth chart over Devin Ford. But we only saw Devin Ford, and I think that's just an A&M thing. I think we see some Aeneas in the first half.
I don't know if that's just an A&M thing because here's a funky stat from the A&M game, Jack. Do you know who was second in targets behind Bo Williams for Notre Dame?
You mean Bo Collins?
Bo Collins, I'm sorry. You were talking about Aeneas Williams. Bo Collins had 7 targets. Number 2.
Second in targets. JG?
Nope. I think he had 3, and he caught all 3.
Flanagan?
Nope. One of these targets made us shake our head in the press box and say, why are you doing this on this specific down and distance? That's the one I only vividly remember.
Was it Devin Ford?
Devin Ford had 4 targets.
Yeah. Interesting.
So is that a norm? I don't know, but I think that was a sign of they like him. If they trusted throwing him the ball in that game, they like him.
They like Ford, but I think that was more we trust Ford more than we trust Ford more than Aeneas in this kind of game. I think Aeneas has a similar type of skill set that they go to against A&M.
I think both are good. I think both are good picks. If like, I'm not a big bettor, but if you could find prop bet odds on touchdown scorer, I would sprinkle a little something on Williams. I like him in this game. I like your pick there. I just see this being a Devin Ford touchdown game, where everyone celebrates with him in the south end zone. And, they're like, hey, man, we love this guy. He's our special teamer. He does everything. Like this feels like Devin Ford touchdown type game. But I'm going with Chris Mitchell. I like your picks as well, for sure. What about one more thing while we're on the offense? Because Faison is out, and I think Mitchell's going to shine because of that. KK Smith, Micah Gilbert, especially if the game gets out of hand.
KK Smith, Micah Gilbert, 2 guys that, well, we know we're going to see KK Smith because he's on the depth chart, and they like to roll 6 receivers. Freeman said we could see Micah Gilbert. There was a Deion Colsey comment earlier, like we could see him, but Freeman told us like aside from the 6 on the depth chart, like KK was number 7, Gilbert was number 8. That means Colsey is the only other one who traveled. He's number 9. Number 8 now that Faison's hurt. But I like KK. KK is a guy who, if he plays well enough, he could prevent them from taking another Chris Mitchell type deep threat in the transfer portal because he could fill that role next year, I think.
I can't get over Mike Denbrock over and over and over again in fall camp, just kind of mentioning KK Smith's name out of the blue and practices that we were at. it was KK this, KK that. He's kind of grooming this guy to be something special in the next couple of years, Jack.
Completely agree.
Defensively, somebody who didn't do much against A&M, I think is going to do something against Northern Illinois. I've got RJ Oben, and I think he's too good to not get a sack. Or, I mean, he's not going to get a sack in every single football game, but I picked him to get one against Texas A&M, and I think you did too. I think the over-under was 0.5, and we both said over. So, I mean, he wasn't listening to that, but he's listening to himself, and he's listening to, I don't know about any of the outside noise, but he knows that maybe he should have done a little bit more in that football game. He's a good player, disruptive guy. That's why Notre Dame got him. You mentioned a good point last week, though. I don't know if it was on this show or maybe we were just conversing amongst ourselves. It took Javonte Jean-Baptiste, or maybe this was somebody else. I don't know where I heard this. Javonte Jean-Baptiste kind of eased into what he was last year for Notre Dame. So maybe it didn't happen right away. Maybe it won't happen right away for RJ Oben. But again, kind of like those other players that I mentioned on offense, it just feels like a spot, Jack, where he's going to go around a MAC tackle and do something, or get a tackle for loss, get a sack, something like that. I'm looking at RJ Oben in this game.
Yeah, I like it. I will make a bold prediction. 1 Jaden Mickey interception.
Okay.
I think there are certainly many reasons that Christian Gray won that job, but the thing Jaden Mickey does do very well is jumping routes when quarterbacks make mistakes. He's got the fluid hips. He's got the athleticism for it. He's got the ball skills. Not necessarily like go up and get it ball skills like Christian Gray and Benjamin Morrison have, but the ability to jump those routes and make those interceptions, and I think he gets one. I mean, he played 23 snaps against, I think it was 23 or something around there. Against A&M, he's going to play plenty against Northern Illinois.
What was Gray at? You did all the snap counts.
Gray was at
twice as much then?
Gray was at like high 40s, like 48, 49.
Okay.
So he's the clear starter, but like they mixed Mickey in plenty.
Yeah, so that's over like a 2/3, like a 60.
Yeah.
That's like a 70-30 split, or maybe even 3/4 to a quarter type of situation going on there, which I don't think we're shocked by at all.
Couple other interesting defensive snap counts while we're on the subject, like Boubacar Traore, 35 or 36.
A lot of snaps.
Rod Hurd, 35 or 36. They ran that big nickel and the dime package.
He's versatile, man. He could play, and that's what we knew, but like he showed it in that game.
I mean, it really confirms that like Adon Schuler won that job. Like they still like Rod Hurd plenty. Adon Schuler grabbed that job and took it.
Yeah, dude, the depth, man, at all of these positions is insane.
Yeah.
Al Golden coaching up that much depth. We're only one game into this. Like somebody asked, and we'll get to our last question in a minute because I know Jack has a fantasy football draft in 10 minutes. And I don't know how seriously you guys take fantasy football, but I lost all of my hair one year because of it. So I don't think Jack has that on the line, but I'm going to let him get to this draft in less than 10 minutes. Where was I going with that, though? I was about to say something.
I think you were like segueing into the next question.
Yeah, maybe I was. And this guy's definitely worth talking about, as we conversed earlier. But I was going to say something else. Maybe it comes to mind. But yeah, let's do segue into that final question. Here's a guy. That's what I was just about to say. Al Golden coaching up all of these guys on the defense. Here's another one of those guys. Jaylen Sneed. Jack, what did you make of his week one? And what's he going to do the rest of the season? This was kind of framed on the message board in the sense of, are we going to see him rush the passer a lot? And to me, my answer was yes, of course. That's a no-brainer. That's kind of what he did last year. But I think the bigger point here, Jack, is so much more than that, right? He can play the will, obviously the rover, line him up on the edge and just say, go get the quarterback, go get whoever has the football. He's playing fast, cerebral.
Yeah.
My answer is, we're going to see him do a lot for this football team. Well, I think he was he played the second most snaps of any linebacker, right?
One ahead of Bowen. So I think it was like Kaiser at like 57, Bowen or Sneed at 31, Bowen at 30, Kingston in the low 20s, Osbury in the high teens. And one of the things that I learned doing the defensive rewatch is like, I was really impressed. I was thrilled with what I saw from Jaylen Sneed. It's not that often, like coaches preach something all offseason. It's like Jaylen Sneed's gotten smarter. Jaylen Sneed knows what he's doing more. Jaylen Sneed's playing faster. Jaylen Sneed is getting his assignments right. Like, we saw all of that in this game, and the coaches proved, Al Golden proved like how much he trusts Jaylen Sneed with how much he played him in and at how many different spots. Like, he played Viper, he played Rover, he played Will. He's a really nice outside backer in that goal line package where he made that tackle for loss. The play that really stood out about Jaylen Sneed, Terry Bussey, who's like the true freshman who plays all three phases for Texas A&M, had like a jet sweep, and Sneed recognized it right away. Didn't even think about it, just zoom into the backfield. That was the play where like he tore off part of Bussey's shirt. He was hanging on for dear life.
That's the shirt play. The shirt play.
And I think it was Kingston who ended up finishing that play for a tackle for like loss or maybe a gain of 1 or 2. And the thing that stood out to me about that was like, sure, you would like it if Sneed like hit him in the rib cage and made the tackle for loss, but you'd much rather him play that fast, miss, but play with effort and finish the play than you would him hesitating and letting Bussey get the edge there. And so that the latter thing is what we would have seen from Jaylen Sneed in the past. And what he did is the new Jaylen Sneed. And he's really, like, we talk all offseason about Jaylen Sneed being a versatile weapon for this defense. Like, that's what he was in that game. I was super impressed. Super impressed with both him and with Al Golden for really finding a way. Even if Sneed's a guy who doesn't necessarily fit the base defense, Al Golden found a way to use him in a way that really helps this team. And it's what really separates the good DCs from the bad DCs, in my opinion. Using a guy like Jaylen Sneed. Yeah.
That was my biggest worry was, okay, Maris Leofau is gone. I get it, but that just means Jack Kaiser is going to come up and play every down at will. And he played 57, obviously not all at will, but 57 snaps. That's you're entering JD Bertrand, Maris Leofau territory there. What does that leave for Jaylen Sneed? That was my preseason worry. Oh, what does that leave for Jaylen Sneed? Al Golden still finds a way to get Jaylen Sneed on the field for 30, was it 31, 30 something snaps?
Yeah, 31.
That's amazing if you're Jaylen Sneed, a guy who last year, I think he had some games in the single digits, Jack. I mean, I should pull this up, but was that the case, or was it more?
Yeah.
Was his
they
floor like a dozen?
Yep. They had talked preseason about using him in this kind of versatile role, like 20 to 30 snaps a game, but they just figured they didn't think he was ready. They really didn't think he could do that at that point. He wasn't playing fast enough to do that. And man, not only Sneed, by the way, but like Bowen had a great game. Kingston had a really good game. Kaiser obviously had a good game. Osbury, I was super impressed with.
Osbury, yeah.
Osbury had that pressure on the first drive. He had a tackle for loss, or maybe no gain in the fourth quarter, the first play after the touchdown. Like, Osbury had a fantastic game in his limited reps. Like, one of my big takeaways from this week, like all the 5-back rotation stuff that they talked about, that is all true. They have 5 starting linebackers. They're going to play 5 starting linebackers.
It's impressive. And you know what reminds me, or when I look at Osbury and Sneed, I look at them kind of similarly in the sense that you're like, are you sure that's a Notre Dame linebacker? And then it doesn't matter when they're out there because they're playing fast enough, like you said, to where if you lose 10 to 20 pounds, who cares if you're getting there first and you're disruptive and making plays. And you mentioned the t-shirt play, I guess we'll just infamously call it. He did enough to slow Bussey down. And then I think it was Kingston Viliamuasa who eventually cleaned it up right at the line of scrimmage, right? Like that's all you can ask. That's a jet sweep that's probably going for 15, 20. Maybe Bussey is still running type of yards against some other teams, not Notre Dame, because Sneed was there before Bussey could do anything about it. And he owes him a t-shirt, but I think that's a fair trade-off that Jaylen Sneed would make.
If you're going to make mistakes, make them fast. That's something that this coaching staff preaches a lot. And that's what we saw out of Sneed, out of the other backers, out of Schuler, out of Christian Gray. They are playing really fast right now, and it is really encouraging to see for this defense.
And the last point that I'll make on this and in the show, I did something on Kirk Herbstreit today as I was listening to him on the Pat McAfee show, and he was pumping up Marcus Freeman. That was the gist of the conversation. But there was one thing that he said, Jack, that kind of struck me, and I'll actually just kind of read this off because I think it was such a powerful quote, and this is exactly what Notre Dame fans want to hear. It's when a team comes on the field, and he's talking to Pat McAfee. He says, "You're big on that, Pat. They're big. Notre Dame, through recruiting, through the portal, they look so much different than what they were a few years ago. They used to always have big linemen, big tight ends, big D linemen, big linebackers. Man, their skill," and I would put Jaylen Sneed in the skill conversation on the defensive side of the ball, looks so different. They're long, they're bouncing. That's Jaylen Sneed. Athletic guys. That's Jaylen Sneed to a T. That's Marcus Freeman's recruiting. Crown jewel of the 2022 class, I believe it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now he's arriving, and Notre Dame's a much better and different football team because of it.
And again, like I was kind of banging this drum. I will admit I was wrong about much quicker than like any dumb game pick. Which is like I thought that Sneed wouldn't really be used like they were talking about because he doesn't necessarily fit the base defense, but
exactly.
Al Golden found a way to use his talent when he became ready for them to utilize him as much as they are, and it's making their defense better.
That should be the last thing that I say on this show. So I will say all of these things first. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, come back next week. Wednesday night, we'll do another Hey Horka, but we got so many videos between now and then. The last thing that I'm going to say, and it goes to your last point, Jack, thank God for Al Golden.
Thank God for Al Golden. Absolutely.